Russia has reported more than 10,000 coronavirus cases for 6 days in a row. Now that's more than 60,000 cases recorded in just 6 days. Russia is now the fifth most affected country in the world from this pandemic. The number of confirmed cases went up by 10,669 cases over the last 24 hours. Now that's a rise in cases by over 10,000 for the sixth consecutive day. The latest spike takes the total number of cases to over 187,000 cases. Latest reports from the Russian government has confirmed 98 new deaths, taking the total death toll to 1,723. Now, this is the lowest death toll for a country in the top 10 worst affected countries in the world. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that Russian President Vladimir Putin accepted his offer to provide ventilators, but there has been no confirmation yet from the Russian administration. Now, cases have been registered in all of Russia's 85 regions, but more than half of all deaths and cases have been in Moscow. The citywide lockdown in Moscow has been extended until the 31st of May. Moscow and other Russian regions are in their sixth week of lockdown. In a recent video meet with the governors, President Vladimir Putin warned against any haste in removing preventative measures. But he offered full support to easing some restrictions in Moscow despite the rising cases. In Moscow, the first phase of lifting lockdown measures is set to begin on the 12th of May. Industries and construction work will be allowed to reopen. However, both Putin and Moscow's mayor agreed that it is premature to open up the services sector. It will remain under lockdown until the 31st of May, but some shops will open. Now, outdoor walking and exercise could also be allowed. On the global stage, Russia has surpassed France and Germany in the total number of cases. Now it sits behind the United Kingdom. Russia's mortality rate is low compared to other severely affected countries in the world. As of now, Russia's death rate due to the virus stands at 0.9%. Now that's significantly lower than Britain's 14.9% mortality rate. However, several medical experts are claiming that Russia's mortality rate is much lower as the government is hiding the true number of cases. Now, our WION correspondent Julia Chapman is joining us live from Moscow for more on this story. Good evening to you, Julia. Rising cases of over 10,000 for the sixth consecutive day. We do know that the citywide lockdown in Moscow has been extended until the end of the month, but there's been some easing of restrictions. What are the latest updates that you have for us?
Well, that's right. The situation is getting worse and worse. Another rise of more than 10,000 new cases in a day, and around 50% of those are here in Moscow, which has seen the worst of this coronavirus outbreak. There have been big problems with full hospitals. There have been a number of patients who have had to be taken to hospital, although authorities do say that the hospital system here in the capital is coping, but there are serious concerns about the testing accuracy that's been going on. We've seen the numbers climbing rapidly over the last few days and weeks. Russia now has the fifth biggest coronavirus outbreak in the world, and nevertheless, authorities, including the mayor of Moscow, say that the numbers are likely even higher. Mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, says that there are probably around 300,000 coronavirus cases in Moscow alone. That's more than 3 times the official figures that we've been given.
Right, Julia, and we believe that the death toll, the death rate, is at less than 1%, sitting at 0.9. Now, that is significantly lower than other countries that are severely impacted by the virus. Why is this?
Well, that's right. Other countries with a similar number of cases have much higher death tolls in the tens of thousands, whereas Russia's remains under 2,000 so far. Now, part of that is because of the way that Russia has been classifying deaths that have happened during this coronavirus era. It still may be too early to know the full picture, but what we understand is that in a number of cases, deaths have been classified as being caused by something else. So it may not necessarily be that coronavirus was the cause of death, but a patient may have still had coronavirus in their system, and those deaths are not going into the overall tally. Now, we understand that in the coming days and weeks, they may start reclassifying those deaths. They may come up with a system whereby they show two different figures, one of deaths that they believe to be directly because of coronavirus, and others deaths that may have been exacerbated by coronavirus but were ultimately down to other reasons. So that is why there is part of that's why we're seeing such low numbers of the death toll. But also, officials say that the number of tests that have been carried out, almost 5 million, accounts for the reason that they have gotten to grips with this this virus better than other countries have. That's what we've been hearing from officials anyway.
Right, and PPE and equipment like ventilators have been making headlines. We are getting reports that President Donald Trump from the US is planning on sending ventilators, and President Putin has accepted this. Have you got any details on that?
That's right. That's from a phone call that the two presidents had yesterday. There's been an offer of some ventilators, and President Putin said that Russia may take up the US on that offer. Previously, in the outbreak a few weeks ago, when Russia's figures were much lower, there was a shipment of aid from Russia to the US just as the cases were really getting higher over in that country. So there has been some mutual aid offered between the two countries, although there were reports that Russia then asked for payment for those aid deliveries to the United States. In terms of the ventilators, it's a different picture depending on where you look in Russia. Here in Moscow, we understand there are a high number of ventilators. Medical officials say they're fairly comfortable with the number of ventilators they have. We also understand from the mayor of Moscow that the situation in hospitals has stabilized. The number of patients being hospitalized has kind of tapered off, so there aren't too many new admissions to hospital. But outside in the regions, there's certainly more of a concern. There are hospitals who are raising the alarm about a lack of proper equipment, and ventilators is among them.
Julia, thank you very much for that report. That's our correspondent, Julia Chapman, coming to us live from Moscow for the latest on COVID-19 in Russia.